If you quoted $10,000 for a 2-day live stream and the client said yes immediately, there's a good chance you just left money on the table. And here's why that should bother you. Because your client is probably spending $70,000 on the event itself. They're likely spending another $300,000 on marketing to fill the room. So that's $370,000 in total investment. And the only lasting asset from that entire spend, the only thing they can use for the next 20 years is your video. So here's the uncomfortable question. If the video is the only permanent asset from a $370,000 investment, should you really be charging $10,000 for it? In today's session, you'll learn why event work should be priced at $15,000 per day or more, and how to shift from hourly pricing to exponential value pricing, and the exact language to use when clients push back on your rates. I'm Den from the Video Business Accelerator, where we've coached 178 companies past the $250,000 mark. Now, I need to be straight with you about something. Most video producers are catastrophically underpricing event work because they're thinking about their time instead of the client's outcome. A 2-day live stream gets quoted like it's 2 days of your labor. But that client isn't buying 2 days of filming. They're buying insurance on a $370,000 investment. Now, this pricing trap shows up everywhere, so don't worry if you're like, oh my God, that's me. Conference coverage, multi-day corporate events, brand activations, anywhere a client is making a massive financial commitment and your video is the only thing they'll have to show for it afterwards. In today's session, you'll learn 3 things. First, how to identify when you're in an exponential value situation versus a standard project. Second, the math behind pricing events at $15,000 per day without losing the work. And third, how to structure your business so you're not trapped doing the work yourself at these higher rates. Let's start with why $10,000 feels expensive, but it's actually leaving tens of thousands on the table. Let's talk about the event value equation. We can break this down to what's actually happening when a client runs a major event. Take this real example from a coaching call last week. A production company quoted $10,000 for a 2-day live stream for a corporate conference. The client said yes immediately and paid in full. Everything seemed great. Then 6 months later, this producer finds out the full picture. The client spent $70,000 on the venue, catering, and logistics for the 2 days. They spent $300,000 on marketing to get people into the room. That's advertising, email campaigns, sales team effort, the whole machine. Total event investment, $370,000. Now here's the critical part. After those 2 days are over, what does the client have left? The venue is cleaned out, the food is eaten, the marketing spend is gone. The only tangible asset remaining is the video. That video becomes their proof the event happened. It becomes their marketing material for the next event. It becomes testimonial content they'll use for years. In some cases, companies are still using testimonial footage 20 years later in their advertising. So the question isn't, what should I charge for 2 days of filming? The smarter question is, what's it worth to this client to have a permanent asset from this $370,000 investment? When you frame it that way, $10,000 starts looking like a rounding error. You're not charging for camera operation, you're charging for peace of mind on a massive bet. Here's why most producers get this wrong. There's a specific reason this pricing trap exists, and it comes down to identity. Most video producers still think of themselves as camera operators who happen to run a business. So when you price event work, you're thinking, well, I'll be there for 2 days, maybe a day of prep, a couple of days in editing, call it 5 days of work, total at $2,000 a day, bang, 10 grand. That's camera operator math. And the camera operator math will keep you broke. Here's business owner math. If you're charging $15,000 per day for a 2-day shoot, that's $30,000. Can you hire a trusted operator for $2,000 a day? Of course you can. Easy. In fact, that's massively overpaying someone. Can you mark that up appropriately because you own the client relationship, you're managing the risk and you're delivering the outcome? Absolutely, yes. So your actual cost is $4,000 for 2 days of operator fees. You're making $26,000 on a project that takes you maybe a day of your own time for the sales call, the planning meeting, and the review. But most producers can't do this because they just can't let go of being the person behind the camera. After all, they've built their business on being the talented operator. And now that identity is costing them $20,000 per project. One of our coaching clients had this exact realization. He was doing every shoot himself, charging based on his day rate, completely maxed out in capacity. We walked through this math together. Within 3 months, he'd hired 2 operators he trusted, marked up their rates appropriately, and his revenue went up, while his time on set went down. The shift from I am a cameraman to I run a business is worth about $100,000 a year in most markets. For event work specifically, it's the difference between $10,000 projects and $30,000 projects. Here's a fascinating story about a 20-year-old testimonial. Let's talk about asset longevity, because this is where the exponential value shows up. A company records testimonials at the conference. 5 people on camera talking about how the product changed their business. Those clips get edited into a highlight reel, posted on the website, used in email campaigns, shown at the next event. Fast forward 20 years, that same testimonial footage is still being used. Maybe it's been re-edited, maybe it's part of a Our History compilation, but it's still generating value. Here's a real example. I was a client at an event in 2004, and they filmed a customer testimonial with me. In 2024, those same clips were still appearing in their marketing materials. 20 years of use from 2 days of filming. Now think about the math. If that video generates even 1 extra sale per year, and each sale is worth $50,000, that's $1 million in attributable value over 20 years from 1 filming session. So should you charge based on a total lifetime value? Well, probably not in most cases. It's probably not realistic. But should you charge more than $10,000? Definitely, yes. The pricing principle is this. The longer the asset will be used, the higher the justified price. Event footage, testimonials, brand films, these all have multi-year to multi-decade lifespans. Training videos that get watched once and archived just don't have the same value. When a client is spending $370,000 on an event, they understand long-term value. They're not just thinking about this quarter. They're thinking about building assets that compound. Your pricing should reflect that same thinking. So here's where I think you should have a $15K per day benchmark. So where does this $15,000 per day number come from? Well, it's not arbitrary. It's based on what high-performing production companies are actually charging for equivalent work right now. We have multiple coaching clients successfully billing at this rate for live streaming and multi-day event coverage. In fact, I was talking to a client just the other day who's doing a job for Microsoft in New York, and they're charging $35,000 for a 1-hour live stream. The math works like this. You're pricing for the outcome, not the labor. The outcome is a permanent, high-value asset from a massive client investment. The benchmark is what other professional services charge for similar risk and responsibility. If you hired an event production company to manage staging, lighting, and sound for a $370,000 conference, they'd probably charge between $40,000 to $60,000. If you hired a professional speaker to headline that same event, they'd charge $20,000 to $50,000 for a 60-minute talk. Your video work sits in the same category of critical infrastructure. Without great video, the client can't leverage the event afterwards. That $370,000 investment becomes a one-time experience instead of a multi-year asset. Now, can you charge $15,000 per day on your first event project? Maybe not. But price elasticity is real, and your confidence matters. But you can absolutely charge more than $10,000, and you can build towards that benchmark systematically. Start by identifying projects where exponential value is obvious. Multi-day events with big budgets, blue chip companies, annual conferences that need recurring coverage, brand launches with long marketing cycles. Quote these 30% higher than you normally would. Get comfortable with that number, then raise it again. One of our clients went from $8,000 for 2-day events to $18,000 over 18 months, just by testing higher prices and not getting attached to every project. She lost maybe 2 clients total. The revenue increases from the clients who said yes more than made up for it. The other critical piece is knowing your peer benchmarks. If you're quoting $10,000 and someone else in your market is getting $15,000 for the same work, you're training clients that videos should cost $10,000. That hurts you and it hurts everybody else trying to charge appropriately. Now, if you're thinking this makes sense, but I have no idea how to actually have this pricing conversation without losing work, that's exactly the problem we solve in our private briefing. I've put together a session that shows the exact 4 shifts we've seen work across 178 companies to break past 500K without burning out. Now it's free and you can grab it at denlennie.com/authority-gap. The pricing conversation is just one piece. We also cover how to position yourself so price resistance disappears, how to structure your business so you're not doing all the work, and how to build systems that scale. Grab that at denlennie.com/authority-gap. Now let's talk about how to respond when a client says, your price is a bit high. Here's how to handle price objections. The most common objection to a $15,000 per day pricing is, but we can get a videographer for $2,000 a day. And they're absolutely right. They can. Here's how you respond. You're correct. There are camera operators available at that rate. But what you're buying from us isn't actually camera operation. You're buying insurance on your $370,000 investment. Then you walk them through it. If something goes wrong on the day, if footage is unusable, if the coverage doesn't capture what you need, how much does that cost you? I have literally had videographers lose cards at events. You do not want to be in that position because you can't redo the event. You can't get those testimonials back. The $300,000 you spent on marketing to fill the room is gone. What we provide is redundancy, experience with events at this scale, and a team that's managed this exact scenario you're dealing with dozens of times. That's not available from a $2,000 a day operator working solo. You're not defending your price, you're reframing what they're buying. The second objection is, our budget's only 10K. This one's trickier because it might be true. Here's a response that generally works. I understand you have a budget in mind. Let me ask you this. If we could deliver this project at your budget, what would we need to remove from the scope to make that work? Now you're having a different conversation. Maybe you remove the edited highlight reel and just deliver raw footage. Maybe you reduce from 2 cameras to 1. Maybe you remove same-day delivery and give them a 2-week turnaround instead. The point is, you're not dropping your price and delivering the same scope. You're showing them what their budget actually buys and letting them decide if that's acceptable or if they need to go and find some more money. In my experience, in most cases, when a client sees what they lose by cutting the budget, they generally find some extra money because they didn't actually have a $10,000 budget. They had no idea what this should cost and they guessed low. The final piece is confidence. If you don't believe your work is worth $15,000 per day, the client definitely won't believe it either. That belief comes from evidence. Start tracking the results your work generates. How many sales came from that event video? How many years did they use it? What was the ROI? When can you say, the last client who used their event coverage generated $400,000 in sales from their follow-up campaign? Price objections evaporate. You're not selling video anymore. You're selling documented outcomes. Here's what matters. If a client is spending $370,000 on an event and you're quoting $10,000 for the only permanent asset they'll have afterwards, you're undercharging. So let's recap the 3 key points. First, identify exponential value situations where the asset will be used for years, not days. That's where premium pricing is justified. Second, shift from a cameraman math to business owner math. You're pricing for outcomes and risk management, not for your time on set. And third, handle price objections by reframing what the client is actually buying, which is the insurance on their massive investment. The producers making serious money in this industry aren't the most talented camera operators. They're the ones who understand value pricing and can articulate it confidently. So here's my question for you. What's the biggest event project you're currently working on? And what would you change if you repriced it using exponential value instead of day rates? If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment below with the project type and the current quote. I'd love to see where your pricing sits right now. And if you want to see how production companies like yours are breaking past $500K a year without burning out, I've put together a private briefing that shows the exact 4 shifts we've seen work across 178 companies. It's free. Grab it at denlennie.com/authority-gap.